All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, CNN is at it again, an evergreen segment. But unfortunately for me in this show, I had to wait a day to highlight it because yesterday we were dealing with the potential outbreak of geopolitical conflict. Nonetheless, it's important to bring this to your attention because it demonstrates how completely void of standards our media in the Trump age is and how it applies to every facet of our lives. CNN said yesterday it settled a lawsuit with Covington High School student Nicholas Sandmann for an undisclosed sum of money. The settlement comes after Sandmann brought a suit against CNN, the Washington Post, and the Associated Press to the tune of $275 million. And these news organizations played a key role in demonizing Sandmann and his classmates for allegedly insulting an elderly Native American man after a selectively edited clip of him smiling in a MAGA hat went viral. And in case you missed it, here's the clip. CNN's admission of guilt via settlement is particularly important because on the merits, there's no way that they could have lost in court. But as anybody who knows, part of the deadliest part of a defamation lawsuit for media organizations is the discovery phase, where the Sandmann attorneys would have been able to request all the internal company communications. You can just imagine the vitriol that were directed at these kids in those private company communications, given how bad it was what they said in public. Ultimately, it wasn't worth it to them. Now, Nicholas Sandmann may have found a small measure of justice in this settlement, but the fact remains the entire national media can smear kids. By and large, they can get away with it. And I know a lot of people who watch this show, they might think the Sandmann case is a right-wing fever dream. But in reality, it's the clearest demonstration that the people with the loudest voices, biggest platforms in our society, instinctively use their platform to smear people who don't disagree with them, and who do disagree with them. And the mindset of CNN staffers, so many others who work in mainstream media, is such that they do not even think twice before smearing a kid. And just as they don't think twice before saying stupid things like only white people support Bernie Sanders, or how Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset, or straight up forgetting that Andrew Yang exists as a Democratic candidate in the 2020 election. The thread between all of this is a dishonest media of monolith outlook on a world who have no compunction about smearing and lying to you, then dropping the story whenever they get something wrong. Look at Russiagate. As a friend of the show, Matt Taibbi, has said, it's probably the most important national story in this country since the Iraq War. The media did exactly what they did then. They completely bungled it from the very beginning. And afterwards, they were put to shame by the IG report and all the critical reporting from outlets that they don't respect. They just moved right on over to impeachment. Story after story of major importance in the Trump era, the media has missed the ball. Friend of the show, Aaron Mate, he had me on the floor nearly laughing yesterday, described how there was more media attention and elite liberal outcry given to whether Jeff Sessions would keep his job as Attorney General than there was in critical coverage of the decision to withdraw from the Iranian nuclear deal. In the case of Trump or any of the Democratic presidential candidates who get a raw deal from the media, they can generally take it. At least they have platforms where they can fight back. But this was a teenage kid in his class. They didn't deserve to be a human sacrifice to the woke political machine which our media insists on propping up and all of the structural factors that were behind it. And I think that's the thing I really wanted to highlight, Crystal, which is that it's about the lack of thought that so many people have. Look, on Twitter, whatever, it's Twitter. But the fact is that Twitter actually becomes real life for a lot of these people, and they instinctually use MSNBC, CNN, and all these other things in order to go after kids. And I just think that there's something very structurally wrong with that system, and that instinct in order to say dumb, bad, or uncritical things bleeds over into very important political coverage in our country.
Well, there's such a laziness when it comes to things that confirm their own ideological bias. So what I was thinking of when you were giving that is the way that the New York Times grabbed a stupid tweet about Cenk Uygur and used it to smear him, used it to characterize this interview that he did with David Duke, which was incredibly adversarial, which Cenk accused him of being anti-Semitic, et cetera.
Tightly edited, right?
And what they found this one tweet that was misleadingly edited, so you just heard David Duke saying, like, I'm not a racist, and Cenk going, oh, yeah, sure you're not.
Right.
And they took it as like he was really saying, sure, you're not a racist. We all know you're not. So, I mean, that's the thing, is there's just an incredible sloppiness and laziness when it confirms an ideological point. And then the Aaron Mate point is so well taken as well, that, like, there's real stuff you should be focusing on in the Trump era. But instead of fixating on those real things, like, you know, the buildup to this very predictable moment, hot moment with Iran, rather than focusing on that, you have a whole 24-hour news cycle about, you know, what was going through this kid's mind when he's looking at this.
And then, about this Native American man, and actually they were being confronted, actually real. It's like, this is so frivolous. Right? These are frivolous things for elites who are obsessed and want to believe that every single person who's ever donned a MAGA hat or voted for Donald Trump is an abject racist to their core.
And why do they want to believe that?
Because
they want to believe that because it lets them off the hook. It lets the neoliberal establishment off the hook, because if it's the voters' fault, if the voters are all just bad and racist and sexist, then there's no introspection that needs to occur. They don't have to examine how their own failings could have led people to vote for Donald Trump. So it's much easier to seize on this and say, see, look, this is why we have Trump, because these people are bad, these people are awful, these people are racist, et cetera, et cetera. And that way they can distract from looking at the deeper structural issues that are happening, unfolding in this country before our very eyes, that neoliberalism has been complicit in at best and actively brought about at worst.
It's just like when people on the right say that poor people are lazy. It's the exact type of smear. It's like, no, our policies have nothing to do with it. It's that they are lazy and they can't pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That's what some of the libertarian class in particular always like to talk about. And the thing is that you have to have compassion and understanding and just some sort of self-reflection. And the instinct in order to just smear kids shows that they don't even have that as part of their constitution. And that's why so much of our media is the way that it is today.
And they don't think of that as a human being and the impact on his life that can occur from that. All right, we're going to have more Rising for you just after this.